Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
Republican Representative Mike Rohrkaste of Neenah is seeking re-election in Assembly District 55. Mike, welcome back to WisconsinEye.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
With your 30 years of business experience, let me ask you about a business issue in the Fox Valley. Does Kimberly-Clark deserve Foxconn-like tax incentives and tax breaks, Mike?
Kimberly-Clark's been a major employer in our area for a very long time, and they employ quite a few, over thousands of people in the area, and they are good paying jobs. So we need to do everything we can to support them to do that. And we did pass in the Assembly a very Foxconn-like, transaction. I think that while that was a good positive step, I think if we maybe take a look back at that, it's not at the same magnitude as Foxconn.
It is not.
Still, no. Meaning what we're trying to accomplish with the Kimberly-Clark transaction. So while it gives them a strong incentive to work something out and stay, it still does have to get through the Senate. So we did pass it. We supported the governor, and we supported Kimberly-Clark. I think if we saw a change to that where maybe wasn't at the same amount of the tax credits as Foxconn, it would be maybe a more appropriate use of state money. I still think that we should do what we can to encourage Kimberly-Clark to keep that facility there. It employs a lot of people. We need to do what we can.
Is it a make or break issue in terms of one of those Kimberly-Clark plants? In other words, if there's no type of incentives, even if it's dialed back from the Foxconn levels, do you expect them to close that?
Well, I mean, they still could, WEDC can still offer tax credits, just not what was approved by the Assembly. So WEDC could on its own offer tax credits that are already available to other companies that would apply to them. So they would have to apply. So they still could get some incentives from the state, just not at the level that was approved and was recommended by the governor, because the Senate hasn't approved that. So there still is that option for Kimberly-Clark if the Senate doesn't come back.
Let's move on to transportation. As a member of finance, you've been a party to both your caucuses and finance deliberations. What's the long-term, what's your recommendation in terms of paying for highways?
Well, long-term, we need a funding solution for our transportation fund. Personally, I think hybrids and electrics are here to stay. I think they are going to do nothing but grow, and probably faster than what many people anticipate. If that continues, if I'm correct, and a lot of people believe that similar to myself, then our transportation funds will be in trouble because the primary funding is the cents per gallon of gas tax. So we need to do something. We need to look at, I think, multiple options, which could include raising the gas tax, could include changing registration fees, which we've already done. We did increase them for hybrids and electrics in the last session. I think that we have to be careful of borrowing. We're at probably what I would say would be the peak borrowing level from a fiscal responsibility standpoint. So we need to look at long-term funding. Right now the economy is so strong with everybody working and commerce just humming. Our gas revenues, or our tax revenues from the gas tax are strong and are able to fund. But down the road, we have to look to where the future is. When you have major car companies, Ford, BMW, others that are investing millions, billions into hybrids and electrics, and even gas power vehicles are going to continue to get more fuel efficient, we will have to do something in the long run.
So you could see yourself voting for perhaps a package that raised a few pennies on the gas tax and maybe a registration fee increase, as long as there was a consensus in support of it?
Absolutely.
What about the T word, tolling?
Well, I mean, I'm open to looking at tolling. I mean, but I hear a lot of pros and cons. I mean, I've driven around the country. I've driven out east several times. I think every state between here and New York and Massachusetts has tolls in some way. So, and I've lived in Chicago before and lived out east. Used to go to Florida. My son went to college there. They got toll roads all over the place down in Florida. So they do work, but again, I think we have to listen to people in the state of Wisconsin. I think we need more work to look at that to see if it's really viable or not, and what the ramifications would be to small businesses along the freeways, and also just the infrastructure. It's not as capital intensive as it used to be with cameras and technology, but still there is an investment up front. And again, I would be most concerned though with looking at the small businesses along those freeways to ensure that those aren't hurt if we did go to a tolling system. So again, there's pros and cons. Whatever we decide is probably not going to make everybody happy, but I think we have to come up with a long-term solution and then explain why we ended up where we do.
Levy limits. Local governments have lived with levy limits for about 15 years.
Sure.
They have been in place to control property taxes, but local government leaders are saying they're hurting their ability to provide services. Is it time, do we keep them in place? Do we get rid of them, or do we ease them back, sir?
I think that we need to look at easing them back in the next few years, in this budget cycle or in the next, because they haven't been changed significantly. I mean, obviously it's a balancing act. We want to keep property taxes as low as we possibly can, or not going up at a rate that they were going. And there's been a lot of positive, I think, reactions. I know in my district, people are very happy that property taxes have not been skyrocketing like they were 10 years ago. However, though, there's increasing pressure for local roads, local infrastructure, so we have to be cognizant of that as well. So I think we're at a point to where, because property taxes haven't been going up, people are feeling good and they don't want to lose some of those services. So I think we have to be open to the municipalities and the counties when they come to us with arguments as to why that we should look at it. So again, I don't want to just do it just for the sake of doing it, but I'm very willing to listen to why they believe that they might need increases.
Let's talk about health care. Now, Fox Valley is a pretty urban area, but so how would you protect and maybe expand health care in the rural part of northern Wisconsin, sir?
I think there's several things. Probably the two of the biggest issues in the rural areas for health care is there's a shortage of providers. Meaning the doctor, all the way from CNAs to general practice doctors to psychiatrists. So I think there's several things. One is we need to continue to look at increasing the Medicaid reimbursement rates. We made significant progress in that, and why is that important? Well, that helps then the hospitals, the nursing homes, that helps the healthcare industry that is getting revenues from Medicaid patients. That increases their revenue, which they can then translate into higher potential wages or ways to attract and retain people. So that's one area that we need to continue to do, particularly for elder care, because in our rural communities, we're aging in those areas of the state at a much faster rate than we are at the urban levels. So again, it's going to be really important that we keep those Medicaid rates increasing as much as we can afford. So I think that's one thing. The other is we have to continue to work with the school systems, with the healthcare organizations to encourage people coming out of high schools to consider healthcare careers, and then try to direct them, maybe give them incentives from whether it's in college or special scholarship opportunities for those people to go into healthcare communities with a commitment to serve the rural areas for a short amount of time. I think I'm open to ideas around that as well.
So state government has a obligation to recruit and help retain these healthcare professionals in rural areas?
Well, we have we have to work with. We have to either, if we are providing certain resources, whether it's through Medicaid reimbursements or through our school systems, we have to work with the healthcare community, just like we work with local business employers in developing fab labs, apprenticeship programs that we've put into place, increasing money into the technical colleges. So we have to do all those things for healthcare as much as we've done for manufacturing, particularly to help that rural area. Again, when you look at the aging of our state, the rural areas are aging at a much. It's going to continue to be a need that's going to go into the next 5 to 10 years at least.
Final question on healthcare.
Sure.
State government and Delta Dental have a program that helps dental clinics in underserved areas. Should that be a priority in the next Medicaid budget?
I think we are waiting to see all the results of a pilot program from increasing the reimbursement rates in dental. I think that yes, it is something that we need to again take a significant look at. Dental, good dental practices and dental care actually, when you look at it, it actually lowers overall healthcare cost. When I was back in the private sector, we offered dental care not just because it was a good benefit, people wanted it, but because if we knew if our employees and their families had good dental care, that led to better overall health in other areas and actually lowered our cost. So we need to increase dental services for really everybody here in the state. So that I think we do need to look at, again, Medicaid reimbursement rates need to be looked at to help address that issue.
You voted for a budget that increased state spending on K-12 schools. Do we need a similar large increase in the next budget, or do you think we went a long way towards helping our K-12 public schools in the current budget?
Well, the $656 million approximately that we put in and along with other programs was a significant investment into K through 12. I do think that there are additional opportunities for us to help. One is in special education, the other is in mental health, and the other is in working with local employers, partnering with the high schools, even the middle schools, on getting kids interested in high demand fields, whether that's in engineering, the STEM fields, or getting them interested in healthcare, again, all the way from CNAs to doctors. We need our kids going into these high demand fields. I know my local R-Neenah superintendent is very interested in continuing to develop partnerships with local organizations, businesses, healthcare, to try to, and the state may be able to help that. So I think that there are opportunities. The other area that I would say is that we need to help bringing families out of poverty. If we can direct more funding into the school systems to help kids that are maybe coming from lower income families to get them into higher paying careers in the long run, that would be a strong investment for not just our kids, but in our community as well.
In the 4 years you've been in office, there's been a dramatic expansion of the Choice and Voucher program. Should it continue to be expanded?
I'm a supporter of school choice in that and primarily because I think it gives parents the right or the opportunity to choose what's best for their child and to provide that, whether that's homeschooling, public education, or private education. They get to determine. That's why I think it's important, and we have expanded it a lot. I think that at this point, I think we need to see where we're at. We did make a significant expansion. We opened up some of the income requirements in the last budget, which I think was a good move forward. But let's see where we are before we do anything else. So I'd like to just maybe take a pause on it, not necessarily against doing anything, but I'd like to evaluate where we are at with it first, then determine if we would make any significant changes in this next session. Again, we've got to balance that with funding for our public education systems as well. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a workforce, or if I didn't mention, we have a workforce issue, and we need to be doing as much as we can to invest in getting kids into the workforce of all levels, jobs that need four-year degrees and jobs that don't need four-year degrees.
Corrections budget. The debate over whether we need a new prison. Green Bay and Waupun were built in the 1800s.
Sure.
Do we need a new prison? Because you've heard Democrats say, let's focus on reducing our prison population. Your position?
I think that reducing the prison population is a good goal, but I think the magnitude that I've heard some of people from the other side of the aisle seems to be a little bit aggressive because it would dig into potentially people that have violent past, and I think that we have to be careful of that. We should, though, be looking for ways to reduce our prison population, particularly using like treatment alternative programs. We need to maybe make more investments giving employers maybe incentives to work with people coming out of the prison to get good jobs. Again, let's get these people working, get them into the thousands of open positions that exist, not just in the Fox cities and in the state, but let's get them employed. Long term, we are probably going to need a new prison. I mean, at some point in time, but I hope that we don't have to do it because of an increasing population need. I want to do it because, or if we do it, the argument should be it's going to be more efficient, more safe for both the prisoners and for the staff. I think that's where we might need to look at doing it. But let's try to reduce our overall maybe prison footprint by reducing the numbers, but eventually we're going to have to. As you mentioned, they're 100 years old, and they are not obviously as efficient. Their operating costs are extremely high right now.
UW system budget. Do we need to continue the tuition freeze?
I think that's something that's open to debate. I think that it would be obviously a great thing to do for parents. I've got a kid in the UW system at Stevens Point, and he's getting a great education there and loves it. And that would be great if we could. But I think we have to take a look at the budget too, and we have to take a look in the UW system. So I'm open to if we can continue it. That'd be great for Wisconsin families. I'm not at a point though where I think we have to draw a line in the sand and make that decision right now. We've done a very good job of keeping those costs down here in the last 4 or 6 years. And I want to, if we do allow any increases, I think that we need to be very prudent and work closely with the UW system on what would be really needed. We have to balance that.
Is it time to legalize either medical or recreational marijuana?
I am not for legalizing recreational marijuana. We have enough abuse issues, I believe, with alcohol, opioid abuses. I mean, there's more people dying from opioid-related overdoses than automobile accidents now. And I think if we increased recreational marijuana, that is going to cause additional problems. And it's not just me saying it. I am on the board of a mental health provider in the Fox Cities. I have worked closely with providers in the area. I've talked to one of them, a major psychiatrist who has special training in AODA issues, and she indicated to me she did not think it's a good idea as well, again, for the reasons that I said. Now, in terms of medical marijuana, I mean, we did approve the CBD oil. I think that we should continue to look at how medicine is using the components of marijuana and seeing how that can be used better to either reduce seizures or pain. It could be a good pain alternative to opioid type medications, but again, we need a little bit more maybe advancement in the medical community. So I'm open on the medical side, but not on the recreational.
Final question, differences between you and your opponent in the November 6th general election?
I think that what I offer is that I have demonstrated to the residents of the 55th District that I've been able to get things done in my first 2 terms. I was able to head up a task force on Alzheimer's and dementia that not only got bills passed in that first session that I was in, but we followed up in the budget and in other bills. Recently, we just awarded $500,000 to the Alzheimer's Association to promote or to advertise the services that are available to people in Wisconsin to help families. That was a bill that I authored. I also pushed through in the budget expansion of the dementia care specialist, one of which actually was ended up going to Winnebago County. And so I've been able to actually get things done in my first term, got put onto the Joint Finance Committee, and have been able to, again, be an effective voice for the residents. I've listened to organizations like Valley VNA that we need to increase the Medicaid reimbursement rates, and we were able to do that to help the nursing homes, the assisted living. I've worked with local employers on continuing apprenticeship programs, expanding fab labs. I listened to a constituent, Gail Zemer. She actually was in 3rd stage of breast cancer. She talked to me about an issue on tissue density. I took her idea and was able to move it through both houses of the legislature, get unanimous support, and have the governor sign a bill that basically gives women more information about their health care. So I've tried to listen to everybody, whether they are a school district, a business, and then an individual. And I'm focused on solving problems, and that's really what I want to continue to do for the residents of the 55th.
Thank you. Republican Representative Mike Rohrkaste of Neenah is seeking re-election in Assembly District 55. The election is November 6th. Representative, thanks for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.